Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Glenn and Adrian's Rock Talk. I'm Glenn,
Hello.
and that's Adrian.
Adrian, yes.
And today's subject is Black Sabbath, but not Black Sabbath in total. We're actually focusing on the album Master of Reality, which
There we
Adrian is
go.
sporting right there on his T-shirt, and there he's got the vinyl too. And actually,
Perfect shirt for this episode.
got a vinyl one here too. So.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the nice thing about this is actually the first time I've ever owned the vinyl. I bought this very recently, and what I really like is that they have the lyrics right there. And so for the first time, while listening to a Black Sabbath album, I was actually reading all the lyrics,
Oh,
which I found very illuminating. They're very much yeah, they're all kind of about being an underdog and kind of not really getting the respect you deserve and watching the world get polluted. You got to blast off into outer space to get away from it. And,
yeah. Oh,
so
yeah,
it's,
I guess.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well, I mean, in general, it's actually a very lucid album, I thought. But anyway, without getting too far
Yeah.
ahead of ourselves, why don't you
It's
go ahead?
well, it had some pretty big shoes to fill because after the success of Paranoid, which they weren't expecting at all.
Oh, yeah.
And so they went back and they created a heavier sound. I think this was the first album where Tony Iommi actually tuned his guitar down to C
Yes.
sharp instead of E. For those of you who know tuning guitars or whatever,
Yeah, down three
that's
half steps.
yes. An interesting fact about Tony Iommi. This is a very famous fact about him too. Is that pretty much on his last day at the job at a factory, he accidentally cut the his fingertips off, and an accident with a sheet metal machine or something. What he eventually did was he took some nozzles from like nasal spray and like other cold remedy stuff like that, and he basically made prosthetic fingers. He like put leather on the fingertips so it would grip on the strings.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a pretty ingenious. And another thing that he found helpful to do, which he started doing on this album, is tuning his guitar down to C sharp instead of E.
Hmm.
And that will loosen the strings, so it made it easier for him to play. It
Hmm.
made it less painful for him to play. It was actually painful for him to play a regular guitar.
Oh,
And
yeah, sure. That would bring the tension of the strings way down.
yeah, this would be responsible for the original heavy metal sound. When they tuned the guitars down, it just had a more heavy, more sinister type sound to it,
I
and
would.
it was awesome. So
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I noticed it with this album. I mean, you could kind of tell immediately it had entered a different realm because it had gone down those three half steps. Makes a huge difference.
it
Just,
does.
you go from blah, which is no, that's about an E flat. Boom, da da da. You're like,
Yeah.
so anyway, it's
If you want a good reference, listen to the jam part of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
yes,
That's
that's one of their best moments, I think. Actually,
yeah,
that part.
that's in the key of C sharp anyway. That little
Okay.
jam there.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if they chose C sharp not just for what was comfortable on guitar. I wonder if that happened to correspond also with what was good for Ozzy's top note.
Yeah,
Like maybe
you know
he
what
could have.
they did? They tried tuning the guitars down even lower at
Mm.
one point, and to make it easier for Ozzy to sing, and he just sang too high when they did that. So they
Oh.
figured, okay, we'll just go back up to C sharp,
Right,
do it as is.
we'll just kind of okay, but don't tell Ozzy.
There's a story behind the way the album begins. I guess what happened during the recording session was Ozzy brought Tony a huge joint,
Oh,
and he was smoking it, and he was coughing uncontrollably at one
yep,
point.
that's right.
So they recorded that, and that's the beginning of the album there.
Yeah, that's right. And for those,
Uh,
I don't know if it's going to focus or not. I'm trying to see if it will. It might be too close. I was going to try to
Sweet
show the
Leaf.
lyrics. It's a love song to
It is.
marijuana.
Hmm.
Is what it is.
Yep.
When I first met you, you didn't realize I can't forget you or your surprise. You introduced me
Yep.
to my mind and left me wanting
Yeah.
you and your kind. I love you, oh, you know it. So,
Yeah.
straight people don't know what you're about. But they put you
Mm.
down, they shut you out. You gave to me a new belief, and soon the world will love you, sweet leaf. And
Mm.
this song was prescient because this is a 50-year-old song this year. So kudos to Ozzy and or Geezer or whomever came up with the concept.
Well, I know how they came up with the name Sweetleaf too. It was actually Geezer had been to Ireland and he got these cigarettes that you can only get in Ireland called Sweet Afton cigarettes.
Mm.
And I believe the quote on the package was, "It's the sweetest leaf that gives you the taste."
Oh,
And then they thought sweet leaf, and so they just took it into this whole other thing, of course.
yeah. I see stylistic differences between what is likely Geezer's writing and Tony Iommi's
Yeah.
because he's got a couple of songs on here where he wrote the words, I believe,
Mm.
or at least one.
And then there's Solitude on side two,
Hmm.
which is I learned something today. I learned that Ozzy sang that, not Bill Ward.
Really,
Yeah.
I thought it might
I
have.
was surprised to find out. I just saw all these posts confirming that Ozzy had actually sung Solitude. He just, I guess, didn't sing the way he usually sings.
Everything I possess, now they are gone.
Tony did play the piano and the flute on that song,
Mm.
as well as the guitar.
Yeah, I noticed that there are two piano tracks, one forward and one backwards.
Mm,
So as
yeah.
you're listening, you hear it coming in, ding, and then he hits it, and
Yep.
and that's how it does.
Yeah, you're right. They put a lot more energy into recording this album, or a lot more time, or
Mm.
whatever, than they did with the first two albums.
Oh yeah.
I shouldn't say energy, but they spent more time. They did more work on the album. They weren't so focused. They weren't as focused on going out and playing live
Mm.
all the material at
Yeah.
this time. So yeah, they did some pretty neat things on this album.
I had heard that their first album got recorded in one day. They had 2 days, and they said, well, one's for mixing, so let's just do our live set, and they did it
Yeah.
all in one day, and then a couple of overdubs, and then they went off to play some gig. They said for 20 pounds,
Mhm.
like afterwards.
Wow.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
was early on. That was late '69, but yeah. So I know they went pretty quick early on, but this one you can tell they. I don't know. It just feels more fleshed out than those early records. How about After Forever?
Those the lyrics were written by Geezer. I know that. And Geezer had a very traditional Catholic upbringing, and
Yes, it's an exploration certainly there of,
yeah.
and it's interesting. But I played one of the
Mhm.
songs off this record in church by request of our pastor. But you can tell.
Okay.
I mean, you can understand why he might have been drawn to this album.
Hmm.
There are. It's not the only song where you start thinking about what the right thing to do in life is, or where you start kind of where they philosophize on various ideas about how to live and how the best way to live is, and when it's time to go. you know, so I wasn't too surprised to see those words there, and although they're kind of you don't hear that very often in a major rock band,
Hmm.
songs talking about spirituality or God or
Yeah.
Christ or whomever. So the next song is Embryo. It's just an instrumental, a quick instrumental.
Right. It's the introduction to Children of the Grave,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. But it's a nice little self-contained thing too. Yeah, so that takes us to Children of the Grave.
Hmm.
Now that's the one that I
Yeah.
played in church, and
Wow.
well, it is. It's the revolution in their minds. The children start to march against the world they have to live in. Oh, the hate that's in their hearts. They're tired of being pushed around and told just what to do. They'll fight the world until they've won, and love comes flowing through. will it bring peace? The sunrise of tomorrow. Must the world live in the shadow of atomic fear? So the pretty
Yeah.
big subjects.
Yeah.
Can they win the fight for peace, or will they disappear, etc.?
I was gonna guess that that was the song they did, the
Yeah.
Children of the Grave. Either that or Lord of this World, but I thought probably Children of the Grave.
No, I've been listening to Lord of this World a lot. The two songs that I spent a lot of time listening to because I hadn't really heard them before were Lord of this World and Into the Void. They're both jam packed with riffs, and so but not to get ahead of ourselves, but yeah, it was a riff fest that morning at the church. When I had a second guitar player come in, so I played one of the guitar parts, but he was actually the seriously incredible guitar player. His name's Cliff. He actually teaches guitar. We did all of the duels, and and we brought the house down. Everybody loved it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and our pastor delighted in talking about it afterwards. And see, there's messages everywhere. You just got to listen.
Yeah, it's funny because so many people think of Black Sabbath as like this satanic band or something. They're actually just the opposite. It's interesting. I heard this story about how one of the band members, I don't remember which one, his dad had made some silver crosses for them for protection, because I guess one time they were going to play a witch's coven or something like that. Yeah, and they
Bring some garlic.
either didn't show up or they they
Put it over your neck.
or they didn't play well enough or something. But the witch's coven was very dissatisfied, and they were afraid that they were going to cast spells on the band.
Boy, that's a bad gig. That's what. That's just, next time just say, no, I'm sorry, we're booked. Yeah.
It was, I don't know what the occasion was exactly, but it was some sort of event involving Wicca and or witches anyway. I don't know if they were actually Wiccan. So that's why they started wearing crosses anyway.
Until I bought this, I only had a couple of Black Sabbath albums. I feel like I had more at one point, but one of them was the first album, which is great, and I've had that for years and years. I've actually got two different copies of it, and they have different songs starting side two.
Yep.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah, there's a British release and an American release, I think.
Mm-hmm. But this may be why your friend has trouble believing, because this is the greatest hits album that came out in the UK.
Oh my!
And I didn't know until recently that this maybe
looks like a Renaissance painting.
Yeah, it probably is. Yeah, there's all kinds of terrible things happening. But there it is.
Oh yeah. They had that in Renaissance art.
Yeah, but it had a great song list. So
that's pretty good.
So I have like half the Paranoid album on here, and but the only thing off Master of Reality is Sweet Leaf. But this was so good because it's everything, up and through Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. It's the highlights, and so that's a great compilation. So I never really felt the need to go buy all the individual albums, which I think is kind of a mistake. Now I can see that they're at least Master of Reality. I can see why it can be considered a stone cold classic. Well, yeah. So that ends side one, and then side two, you've got the other instrumental, Orchid.
Yep.
No, that's again, I'm not sure how to describe it exactly.
Music, I like it.
It's a nice piece of music. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And then that leads into Lord of this World.
Yeah, which is an awesome riff. It starts off with a great riff.
Yeah, I noticed these have a lot of riffs throughout them. It's not just one riff in any given song. It's several.
Yeah. Into the Void is another one. Another one that begins very well.
Yeah, and it's all like different time signatures, throughout the song. They're playing something totally different. Like they do that in Sweet Leaf at the end. Suddenly the jam is galloping along, and they come back to the slow part, and it's almost like two separate pieces of song stitched together, Yeah. Your world was made for you by someone above, but you choose evil ways instead of love. You made me master of the world where you exist. The soul I took from you was not even missed. See,
That's the devil singing.
yeah, it's the devil's perspective.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but you know,
Yeah.
it's not
It's not pro devil.
advocating for the devil. That's the thing.
No, it's not.
You know, it's just kind of like, oh, this is probably what the devil would be saying to you if you were talking to him right now. And then we get to Solitude, which is the really interesting entry,
Yeah.
the one without drums. But yeah, you've got your flute, your Tony Iommi flute, and
Yep. Tony on the keyboard, on the piano, and
yep, backwards and forwards.
as well as a guitar.
My name, it means nothing. My fortune is less. My future is shrouded in dark wilderness. Sunshine is far away. Clouds linger on. Everything I possess, now they are gone.
Solitude.
Yeah, it's all about. Well, I'm on my own now. But it's pretty ethereal for Black Sabbath anyway. And then they come crashing back in with Into the Void,
Yeah.
which is a song. What are your thoughts on this song? I love
Great
the
riff in the beginning of that one too.
I think there are guitar players out there that think that's the biggest riff ever. I feel like somebody has said that. I can't remember who.
It's a very melodic riff.
Yeah. It's a big riff.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Rocket engines, burning fuel so fast, up into the black sky so vast, burning metal through the atmosphere, Earth remains in worry, hate, and fear. With the hateful battles raging on, rockets flying to the glowing sun, through the empires of eternal void, freedom from the final suicide. This saying they're escaping because everything's breaking loose down here. Yeah, freedom fighters sent out to the sun, escape from brainwashed minds and pollution. Leave the earth to all its sins and hate. Find another world where freedom waits. You know, that's so they're flying their rocket ship into the void to get out of Dodge. Find something better. Now that I've actually read these words, the songs are going to stay with me more easily than before.
Yeah.
Because I know I've heard this record before, but I just, I never really knew what each song was, except for Sweet Leaf. I think I've heard After Forever, because that's got a really nice musicality to it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know Children of the Grave until we were asked to do it. I've always liked Black Sabbath and respected them and listened, but not necessarily been engaged enough to see what they're actually singing about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all pretty cogent.
Black Sabbath, I probably do pay more attention to Black Sabbath lyrics than I do to other lyrics. There are some lyrics I like. I just don't really, it's not the focus for me.
I think a big part of the reason Black Sabbath's music has survived for so long, and it's holding up. It's almost timeless, really. A lot of it has to do with the words that went along with the music.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of people out there making interesting music, but unless you have a really good song, I think, or something that people can latch onto, you're better off if you have that in your song, in my opinion. And they did a really good job on these. Like all of these lyric sets are really good. All right, well, that was a lot of fun. I hope you all enjoyed it too. Good times, Adrian, on this one. Good call.
Good times,
and so catch up with us next time. We're probably going to continue the Black Sabbath exploration. That's all I'm going to say for now. So until then, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, maybe putting a like down there, maybe telling your friends, we would love that. If you have any ideas of things you might like us to cover in the future too, you can drop those down below as well. All right. So for now, we'll just say, see you later.
See you later.